Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, May 26th, 2026. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and change. Got the whole band back together here. Garrick Hodge is back. Mark Porter is back. We gave them Monday off just to make sure Tuesday was good enough for print, and it is. And wouldn't you know, as we discuss behind the scenes all the time, covering Ohio State is always fun because they've always got something for you. And wouldn't you know, as we're going to put together the itinerary for today's show, a fine young man named Prince Goldsby said, guys, I've got it. I've got your content for today. Linebacker Prince Goldsby verbally committed to Ohio State. He is from Missouri. He's the number 11 linebacker in the country, according to 24/7 Sports, the number 2 player in Missouri. Kaboom. 6'3", 205 listed. Although we're going to dive into the video. Garrick, good job by you convincing Mr. Goldsby to commit upon your return for ratings. You've got some real swing.
Yeah, I wish I had that much influence. Unfortunately, I don't. I am just a humble recruiting analyst that has no sway. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a welcome back to the real world kick. You got a commitment to report on, and honestly, I prefer it that way. I'm not one to just ease into things. It's official visit season, as you can tell by my description. It's officially official visit season, and what a great start to the week, right? For Ohio State, landing one of the top linebackers in the entire country, and the guy that James Laurinaitis really zeroed in on the last couple weeks. Once it was apparent that A.J. Randall, who ends up committing to Miami, Ohio State, and his camp just had some philosophical differences they weren't able to get over. And frankly, this is a guy that James Laurinaitis, even though it's a pretty new recruitment, they only offered him in late February. He ended up visiting in mid-April for Ohio State spring game, and it just kind of took off from there. It's a quick recruitment, but they really zeroed in on this guy once they evaluated his junior year film that Mark's going to go over. And I put in the first line of the impact piece, one day we are not going to just maybe lazily throw around the Arvell Reese comps to new incoming linebacker prospects that have a twitch on the edge to them. But my friends, today is not that day, because what we have here is a linebacker who had 13 and a half sacks his junior year. He plays primarily outside, kind of on the edge, kind of a hybrid between a stand-up edge rusher and kind of just an outside linebacker, however you want to kind of phrase it in that system. Yeah, he's coming here to rush the passer, and he's damn good at it. And you'll kind of get a better look once Mark gets into the film. But the only thing that agonized me about Prince Goldsby commitment was because he has a name that allows you to have 2 puns. And so I struggled whether to go with Ohio State has landed some royalty or James Laurinaitis has struck gold. And obviously I went with the latter on the commitment story. So I spent far longer than I should have trying to decipher which one I should go with. But yeah, it's a great start. Official visit season is always recruiting fans' favorite time of year because June and July are very active, obviously, in the month of recruiting. And Ohio State was able to secure a linebacker commitment that they really wanted, quite frankly. And now they have 2 impact linebackers committed in Quentin Cipher and Prince Goldsby. I think that they also secured 2 players with 2 different contrasting styles, so they complement each other really well. And they're probably going to take 1 more linebacker, I would imagine. And as far as I'm concerned, that spot is Kaylon Bailey's out of Glenville if he wants it, and he has a commitment date for June 25th. So we probably won't have to wait a whole lot of time for that answer on whether Ohio State will expand its class to linebacker at 3. But so I think those are your 2 headliners, and possibly to be filled in with Kaylon Bailey later at linebacker. And I don't want to delay Mark's film breakdown analysis anymore because I'm pretty giddy. So, Mark, what did you make when you watched Prince Goldsby on film?
Mark, you can give your intro, and then I will pull the video for you.
Yeah, going back to the Bill Kurlick days, and when Garrick came aboard, I kind of said to Garrick, I'm like, well, I don't like to anoint players the second coming of Christ because I think that's going to get old with the Bucknutters. I think that they're going to say, oh, every time Mark Porter plays a video, he's going to compare him to the greatest player that ever came through Ohio State. And I don't think people want that. And you said it. boy, we can't just tell everyone we have another Arvell Reese coming. And we do and we don't. So I'll clarify that as we watch the film. He lines up all over the place the way we used Arvell Reese. You know, he does a lot of things where he rushes the passer, he plays coverage, he does stand-up linebacker. It's really impressive, but he's not the same size as Arvell at 205 pounds. His high school film was probably better than Arvell's coming out of high school. These first couple plays, he comes off the edge unblocked, and you get to see his burst and his speed. But what you're really going to like is when he starts chasing players across the field, he almost looks like a strong safety. That change of direction there where he put his foot in the ground and hit it to the flats, he has another play just like that coming up where you're going to see him get to the flats like a very fast, strong safety. And that's what Arvell was doing out in the flats. Remember, he'd run out to the flats. There'd be someone down. He'd break down and just hog time and throw him to the ground. Here's the acceleration where he comes from behind. Yeah, you see the Arvell tape and the different things, but he's a different player. He has more speed than Arvell, at least coming out of high school. You know, he has more coverage ability. There's plays where he's running down the seam here. And I know this is a quarterback who's probably not the best athlete on the field, but he hunts them like when wild animals attack. So you see the versatility. Look at the rip underneath there for the pass rush moves. I watched his big 15-minute tape. Two of his best plays were later in the tape. Look at him redirect off the block there. He was beat. He was caved down inside, the hustle to get outside. This next play, you're going to see him. Premium.
Pay for that.
See that stuff. But I tell you what, he's more of a Sonny Styles athlete.
I got a comparison for you coming.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And my two comparisons or comps were, I hate to go to the Darren Lee, Ryan Shazier, the fastest players ever to play the position here, but he's doing Arvell Reese things in the body of the Darren Lee type, if that's can accurately, I don't know if that's where you were going. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of different things because he didn't really fit one mold to me because he did so many different things. But if you're Matt Patricia, again, you're giddy with look at the different types of linebackers we're getting. The cipher linebacker, the middle linebacker, like Eli Lee, people weren't excited about him. He had the big spring game. And I finally thought of a way to articulate what Eli Lee does. He might be a first and second down linebacker that goes in there and slams the face of a guard or blows up a fullback. And you know what happens on first and second down? The other team doesn't get a lot of yards. Okay, so third down isn't 3rd and 2. So on first down, when they try to slam it into Eli Lee and they get nothing, on 3rd and 8, you can bring in the faster nickel guys and have a better situation for third down. So it's hidden stuff like that linebackers do. And then this type of linebacker is the one you want to send off the edge on third down, the way he looks coming out of the gates there. So you said it earlier, there's definitely a contrast in the linebackers in this class so far. And even with DJ Jacobs on one side and Wyatt Smith on the other side, and then you throw this pass rusher coming off, it's really what you need at Ohio State to be great. You just need dudes and waves upon dudes.
Buck Rational nailed it. That burst, once he triggers, that's werewolfian at his height and weight. I'll tell you who he reminds me of, Mark. Jordan Hicks.
Oh, yeah.
For those of you who don't remember Jordan Hicks.
Yeah, that's a nice comparison. Chasing down Braxton Miller.
Yes. So the first tape of Jordan Hicks is I'm going to say Lakota West.
Yeah.
He was a kid from Texas who moved here. And this was back kind of when Scouting Ohio and Bucknuts were kind of first unified. And that was one of the first videos Mark did that got me out of my seat involuntarily. And he's like the original werewolf. When Braxton was a sophomore, I think they played at Welcome Stadium at UD.
Yeah.
On the turf, which, by the way, was asphalt. AstroTurf. I got buddies with scars for days. It's old school turf. They've since replaced it. But he was literally chasing Braxton down from behind, which was awesome. And then for those of you who don't remember, Jordan Hicks he went to Texas. It was down to like Florida, Texas, and Ohio State. He went to Texas. He had a really good NFL career. I'm not sure it was as dynamic as many people thought. He just recently retired. One thing I do remember is he hurt Tony Romo and knocked him out for a season, which was kind of ironic at the time that the guy I loved the most on tape then ruined the Cowboys season. Digression. But he was fantastic. If you're looking for a Buckeye, I do think the best comparison is probably Ryan Shazier physically. And if you remember correctly, Shazier in high school was an edge guy, pretty much primarily. They just lined him up on the edge and just let him whippersnapper in there. And then he developed into, in my opinion, probably, and you guys can disagree, Shazier is in the Arvell Sonny category in terms of greatness that we've had here. In fact, I don't want to say anything out of turn. I'd probably pick Shazier first. That's a digression. Definitely a great pick. Go ahead, Mark.
Love to see him play with the Steelers. It seemed like he was just getting going, and you were just going to see the proof of what you just said.
I would love to see Shazier play with Matt Patricia too in college. You know what I mean? And Darren Lee, though he has certainly gone off the reservation, off the field, was a really good college linebacker, converted quarterback from New Albany, kind of the hybrid do-it-all guy. But yes, we will be comparing everyone who is really ferocious that can actually probably move and attack the quarterback is going to get the Arvell Reese comparison now going forward. Garrick, you nailed that one. It looks like they're set at linebacker too, and I like the variety of styles. I'm assuming Kaylan Bailey is coming, Mark. You think that's a fair assumption?
Boy, would that be a shocker if he didn't.
Yeah.
You know, and the word silent commitment could be out there where, you know, they would have to have the spot saved. Like you're saying, these spots aren't endless. So I think there might be go to a couple camps, and unless there's some crazy Brinks truck offer, right. I think we're safe.
Plus, I think the Glenville guys, if I remember correctly, Coach Ginn likes to have all the guys non-committed for the tour, just to tempt a little extra out to get extra eyeballs on the guys who maybe are fighting for that next offer. So Glenville is a team effort, and I will say this, the pipeline is about as reliable in modern recruiting as you can get. There aren't many pipelines left, people. So you have that. All right, Garrick, you were gone for a week. Shocker. Ohio State did not suspend recruiting while you were gone. Mm-hmm. So if you want to kind of bring us up to speed, maybe chime in on the addition of Justin Smith's son, as we are wont to do, and kind of bring everyone up to speed as we tackle what is a very important stretch of time for visits coming up.
Yeah, obviously Ohio State landed the commitment of Wyatt Smith, a top 100 prospect defensive end out of Florida. I kind of see him as that traditional defensive end, really elite run stopper, can probably get a little bit more pass rush refinement. And once he does, I mean, he already had double-digit sacks last season, so it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing already. And like you said, Dan, he's got a pretty good role model to learn from. I think that this is a guy that was honestly pretty under-recruited given his recruiting rank. And I think a lot of teams are going to be kicking themselves once his senior film comes out and he has even more refinement and has put on, you know, a couple bits of attributes to his Madden ratings, as Mark likes to call it, and gets even faster, bigger, stronger, all the 9 yards that come with it. But someone asked me, would I consider Wyatt Smith an elite prospect? I would say yes. If you claim a tier 1 caliber prospect, an elite prospect, he's a run a little bit below DJ Jacobs. To borrow a famous Bill Kurlick line, there are 5 stars and then there are 5 stars, and DJ Jacob is the latter category. But I still think Wyatt Smith is a prospect you should get very excited about, and someone that's going to terrorize running backs and passers for years to come. Mark, I know you already kind of gave your thoughts on Wyatt, but how excited should Ohio State fans be right now when you have a tandem of DJ Jacobs, Wyatt Smith, and then you pair a pass rusher like Prince Goldsby to go along with it? Like, the weapons that Matt Patricia has to play with and tinker with in his arsenal for years to come just has to be the envy of every other school in the Big Ten.
I 100% agree. You know, NFL guys are used to dealing with a 53-man roster, and they kind of recruit the same type over and over to build their defense. And I've said it, Patricia's built a 3-4, he's built a 4-3, he's got a nickel defense, and he's got fresh bodies for all of them, and he's got – I mean, he really has unlimited funds to do this when you talk about the talent. When I do the Buckeye in the Sky videos and we release them, and Dan knows this, I don't get a bunch of comments. I get, 5 comments or so, and it's usually because for 2 minutes I talk about the thing and I do a nice write-up and I pretty much spill my guts. So anything I had to say was in all of that. The Wyatt Smith comments were like 3 or 4 pages of debate, and I tried to narrow down what was going on. And someone compared him to a Bosa, which is what we said. We don't want to anoint these kids the best player at each position. And some people thought, no, he wasn't going to be there, and they threw out Noah Potter. And Brennan Vernon was another defensive end that went to Notre Dame from Mentor. And there were some guys there that just – they weren't as twitchy and they weren't as fast or powerful. And it was like, that was too low of a comparison. So on one hand, people were too high, too low. What we said, I thought was pretty accurate, is he's right in the middle of a developmental curve at 240 pounds and these long arms. We don't know. I mean, he could be 280.
We know.
But I always, I try to err on, hey, maybe he only gets to 250 or whatever. But he's running around very athletic, the upside there, the development's coming. And without anointing him being a Bosa in 40 pounds, there were a lot of other nice options that we presented that, like, okay, the Sam Hubbard tree, he kind of looks like that. That's pretty fair. He was a great NFL player. So there's a tempered excitement for him of where he could end up. And I think that's what's kind of fun about these message boards is you never know what's going to strike a chord with the fans. And I'm sure Dan read those comments. He could probably sum this up a little better.
I loved it. If you're going to compare a high school player to the Bosa brothers, he attends the same high school. He's about the same size, and his father was a considerably better NFL player than theirs. Okay? That's a fact. I was amazed. Amazed is a strong term. When I went back, Garrick, and read Justin Smith's NFL achievements, if he's not in the Hall of Fame, he's very close to being a Hall of Fame talent. He's a 4-time All-Pro. He was a dominant player. And here's another thing, and we talk about this. Look at his chin. Okay, no grown man who played in the NFL that size and that weight with a chin like that had a 6'6" son weigh anything less than 275 eventually. That is an apple tree thing. That is about as we talk about the Glenville pipeline. The pipeline, when your son is a elite player and you get him on the track, if for nothing else, if you had a kid that looked like Justin Smith's son that wanted to play football, where would you send him to high school if you want him to look like the Bosa brothers are a proven commodity. What are the chances Justin Smith and John Bosa had a conversation before Wyatt got there? So I don't understand the reticence with Wyatt at all. To me, it looks like they're just smarter than everyone else and got in before the hullabaloo and have a proven track record. The idea of having him and Jacobs lined up there, I'll put it to you this way. They're both going to the NFL very early. Like, I'm not going to say I think Smith could end up getting drafted before Jacobs, but it's not like the most outlandish thing you could say. And just even the fact that you can approach that sentence to me is considerable. So I don't understand the reticence.
To answer your question, Justin Smith is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But
he's got to be close.
But if it makes you feel any better, he is in the Pro Football Hall of Very Good. He's beyond the Hall of Very Good. He's whatever the level is to the guys.
He's the one who's like the Veterans Committee may get him on in 20 years or something. But he was a very good player. He was also the 4th pick in the draft, by the way. Okay, out of Missouri. So that keep in mind, we also convinced him not to go to Missouri, which is pretty good. So I don't understand that one, but the proof is in the pudding, and we'll go from there. Go ahead.
One more Prince Goldsby note. We stopped using Dan's favorite defensive player that left the Cowboys for Green Bay, Micah Parsons, but that's kind of what this kid looks like on film. He's got that get down and get after you. He's, like he really can werewolf around the field. I mean, at 205 pounds, we're going to assume he's playing at 225 in a couple of years. We're going to assume that, and he keeps his lightning. But this new type of linebacker we're seeing that you can do everything with, boy, that has transferred now to a couple different players, and we're seeing it mirrored down to high school, and they're coming up where, I'm going to stand up at middle linebacker and spy, and then I'm going to go to the edge, and then I'm going to drop off in coverage, and then I'm going to do other things. And here's the secret behind that, if we want to go one more step, is it lets you disguise your defenses. Like when a kid's only a pass rusher, we know what he's doing. When a kid only does this, we know. But when a kid can do all these different things and you have a couple of them on defense, you can line up in a base look and do something that's not base, or vice versa. So I think these versatile players are really right up Matt Patricia's alley.
I love this podcast because we'll get into these pre-production show meetings and Mark will be like, guys, I just don't know if we can anoint these kids as put too much pressure on them. It creates just a level of anticipation that's not fair to the kid. And then what does the grand poopa do? He comes out and he compares Prince Goldsby to Micah freaking Parsons. So he is a monster that he created himself. I'm just giving.
I'll say this: we're really not searching for the next Micah Parsons. We're now after the next Caleb Downs. Mark, I don't know if you know that. We've changed our focus. And I'll say this: one thing, a great point you made there. Tweener used to be a bad word, by the way. Tweener meant, what is he? We can't find a spot for him. Tweener, pick a spot. Them days are done. Now that's called versatility. And, you can be deployed anywhere.
That is a funny observation because, boy, I mean, how many times, Garrick, have you seen a player like, I don't know what he is? And that was a negative connotation. It was like, well, we'll never be able to figure it out. And then I joked that, like, college coaches aren't brain surgeons or, they're not solving cancer. So you have to make it obvious for them. Anytime you have a couple players that are close, they kind of clam up and go, oh, boy, I don't want to make a decision. I could be wrong. But when I'm with these coaches and a kid goes through a drill and they're like, oh, yeah, it was obvious. And it makes it so easy for them. And then they don't have to think or go back to their boss and say, I'm not sure. And he's got a great home life and use those factors. They can just point to the greatness on the field. But Tweener is a thing of the past.
No doubt. And I think it's probably just a reflection of the advance in coaching and being a little more open-minded. The staff's got a little youthful burst and being much more open-minded to where they can go. All right, what do we have to look forward to here, Garrick? Like we said, official visit season may become a term of the past. We're going to get to enjoy it now, but what do we have coming up that we may not get again?
So I don't necessarily know if it's going to fully become a thing of the past because it's not like official visits are going anywhere. They're still going to happen. Like recruits are going to get their trips paid for. What I think might become a thing of the past that I was kind of talking with you about in pre-production is just I guess, pomp and circumstance of it all, because sometimes of the best things to follow if you're a recruiting fan are the official visit weekends. Your team usually has 4 of them on a given day. So, for example, this weekend coming up, they're going to have David Gabriel Georges coming in. They're going to have Marcus Ficcato coming in. 2 of the top of the board guys that if Ohio State lands, that Dan Rubin is going to,
no naked jumps. Dwayne is passed.
He's going to go crazy and do a celebratory shot of something because those are 2 impact players that could play year 1 immediately. But what I say they might become a thing of the past because, Mark, you said it yourself. Have you ever seen an Ohio showcase like you have seen in the past couple of years that you just saw now with the amount of college coaches that were on the road, the amount of college coaches that you talk to that are like, I love this guy so much. I want to get him locked up right now. All right. What's
Ohioans
figure with my GM? What's it going to take? And I think a lot of times what you're seeing is, there were a lot of official visits scheduled on Ohio State's end that prospects just aren't going to make, either because they already have a commit. For example, Prince Goldsby committed, so you don't really need to take another linebacker official visit unless your name's Kaylon Bailey, right? Or, the agent and I have talked beforehand, and we know that we're so far apart on numbers. What's the even point of doing this whole dance? Because you're not budging. I'm not budging. Let's just cancel this trip and call it a day. I'll give you another example. Confirmed with the source this week that Nate Kamba, a name that you've heard before, a defensive tackle from North Carolina, he was supposed to visit this week. That visit's off. I think it's more of Ohio State feels pretty good about a couple defensive linemen right now, names that you'll be very happy about, named Cassie Curry and Marcus Ficato, that play a similar position. And Ohio State is probably in the, we're just not going to waste anyone's time here. I think it's better served if we look at other options and he looks at other options. And, it's not a negative breakup on any party side, of course, but I just think that the more this recruiting calendar gets developed, and I mean, that could be an entire podcast on itself with how much the recruiting calendar changes and what legislation may or may not be passed, and will conferences govern themselves if they can't get legislation passed. Anyway, we don't need to dive into the weeds, but Mark, kind of give us a glimpse of your conversations with coaches from a general standpoint of, we haven't scouted this area much. We're trying to get these evaluations done right now because we want to make a definitive decision as much as we can right now and maybe jump the market and get some of these guys in the class right now. Ohio State did the same thing for Wyatt Smith. They did the same thing for Prince Goldsby. And I think that's going to become more of a trend to where, prospects are going to take official visits, but maybe instead of, all right, we got 12 official visitors coming in and 10 of them are uncommitted, stay tuned for updates to see where you got with the 10 uncommitted visitors. Now it might be, all right, well, there's 3 really interesting ones. There's 4 commitments and there's 1 or 2 that you don't really know. So they're never fully going away. Let's be real. These are 17, 18-year-old young men that like to be wined and dined. And I mean, hey, I'm in my mid-30s and I like to be wined and dined too. So I get it. But I also just think with the state of modern NIL that official visit season might be another thing that gets a little bit diminished. But if that means that the commitments start rolling in a little bit earlier, I don't know if anyone will complain.
Okay, there's a lot to dive into. These it used to be we waited for June because there was going to be a couple Ohio State camps and the whole world was going to reset itself after those camps. There was going to be new players we really weren't talking about that ran times or did good in one-on-ones or came in. And boy, these showcases have really pulled the rug out from underneath the June camps. Okay. And it's good and bad. I worry that when you're watching a team work out against their own teammates, the studs look really good.
No
when
doubt.
When they're going against the JV players, and even the wide receiver 1 is going against the DB 1, there's a separation. And I think these kids are standing out, and these schools that are coming in that aren't as familiar with the track records of high schools or the depth at certain positions are firing off offers. And I don't know if it's the best evaluation they've ever done. Okay. Because you're not seeing them like you did at Ohio State against the best on the best in the country, not just on your team. So I think that's been a big change, but the amount of offers that have popped up, and we scrolled through them, Dan and I, last week, and you weren't here, I just kind of flipped through the page. Hundreds, maybe 1,000 offers came out of May, which is really going to tamp things down when we get into this June. I can't wait to see what players can possibly pull Ohio State's eye away to say, you know what? I know we only have a few spots left, but this kid just put on a performance that we need to offer. We need to make room in the class. So I think that's the most interesting storyline for me when these June Ohio State camps come up. Are they going to have a couple camps this summer and not offer anyone from Ohio? Highly doubt that. I think there's going to be a couple, and we need to brace ourselves for that. And this class is not done when it comes to Ohio, but the landscape, you said it, new coaches, new schools, good and bad to it. But I don't think any of them really affect Ohio State. I think the Kerry Combs in Michigan being around a little more is going to be a little bit different because Combs has a lot of great relationships because he was at Ohio State. And same thing with Tyson Veet. He's the Penn State recruiter, and he was at Cincinnati, and he's been at Iowa State with Matt Campbell. Penn State and Michigan are now putting up their Dukes in Ohio. Marcus Freeman, he's only looking for a couple guys here and there. I think they've really done a national search, and they're hitting their traditional hotspots, Catholic schools. So, as Dwayne would say, the big four in this area, I think the dormant Ohio State or the dormant Penn State and Michigan are not dormant anymore. And we'll see what that means, if they're going to take top-tier players or second-tier players.
turns out to be money again, because what's happening is, and Mark and I have talked about this extensively, you're not getting, I'm completely hypothetically giving you numbers here. Let's say there's 10 guys in Ohio that Ohio State is going to offer. That's probably a little high. That's probably about right for each cycle. Back in the day, you were getting 10 or 9. You're not getting 10 or 9 anymore, because players 5 through 10 aren't first level guys for Ohio State, meaning they're not getting tier $1 from Ohio State, meaning they could be getting tier $1 from another program or more. So what Mark's saying is key, in that it was a waste of time for Michigan and Penn State and those guys to come through here in the past, because those guys were all coming to Ohio State. We were getting the guys 5 through 10. We're like, come on, come in here and fight for playing time. And you're behind Arvell Reese, but things are going to work out for you. Maybe not. So those guys 5 through 10, I now think are going to go elsewhere. We've already seen that. And you're going to lose the occasional 1 through 5 guy you wouldn't have lost in the past, because Phil Knight sells a lot of shoes. You know what I mean? There's a way to compete now, where in the past, we used to be able to tell you guys from Ohio State who've been offered it didn't come to Ohio State. That's not going to be the case anymore. I don't really think it's a negative for Ohio State, obviously, because the recruiting speaks for itself. What I would like to follow up on, though, is the developments with the optimism out west and Marcus Facatu and Casey Curry. Did I do those both right?
Facato, I believe.
Facato. Staccato Facato. I believe Mr. Facato transferred to play with Mr. Curry for their senior year. So we are heading towards what I like to call the package deal. And this would be a large package coming from out west. It would cost a pretty penny, but can you explain the optimism there? Maybe reintroduce us to those two prospects, and we'll let everyone go on with their day.
Sure. Marcus Facato is let's call him 6'5", 6'6", 275-pound defensive lineman that I'm labeling him as an interior guy.
Kind of a tweener.
But yeah, but Wyatt Smith reference, nice. But you can line him up on different spots on the line. You can line him up as a 3. You can line him up as a 5. You can line him up, honestly, wherever you want to play him, outside of maybe nose tackle. I think he would do a pretty good job on the defensive line, considering his versatility, considering his athleticism, considering his twitch, his get off. 247 Sports sources have said that they estimate that Marcus may be one of the highest paid revenue shared players in the entire cycle. So that is the amount of respect that this guy is commanding nationwide. And it should make Ohio State fans happy to know that right now, I would say Ohio State leads for him. They're going to get the first crack at him. He's going to be on campus this weekend. I would bet they're going to do everything they can to try to get him to shut it down right now. Don't take any other visits. What's it going to take? You tell me. Let's see if we can get this done. We'll see if it can happen or not. Maybe. And if it doesn't happen, I wouldn't necessarily be discouraged because some guys just want to take all their visits no matter what, so they have all the facts. So it's the ebbs and flows of recruiting. Right now, there is a lot of optimism around Marcus, but I would caution that this is a young man who's been very impressionable and has set a lot of this school now leads in my recruitment. So things can change 24 hours, ebbs and flows in the way of recruiting. But right now, I think you have to feel really good, and Ohio State's going to do everything it can to get this one done this weekend. Whether it happens or not, we'll see. But and then Cassie Curry is more of a true defensive tackle, more of a 315-pound guy that's either a nose or a 3 technique, depending on where you want to slot him. And he's also a guy that, like Marcus, has been very impressionable and says a lot of this school leads, then this school leads. It kind of changes depending on what visit he takes. But Ohio State, has been gaining a lot of traction with him, and it does not hurt that they are teammates now. This will be their first year as high school teammates, so it's maybe not your traditional package deal, but it's going to be a package deal that has a very expensive price tag on it, And from what I understand, I don't necessarily think that Ohio State's adverse to paying it. So we'll see how interesting modern recruiting gets, what other school gets involved. And unlike Marcus, Cassie, I believe, is taking his last visit to Ohio State. So kind of opposite trends there. I think his is on June 19th. I could be wrong, but I think it's sometime that weekend. But these are top of the board defensive line targets right now. If Ohio State had its pick as a defensive lineman for the interior, it would be Marcus Piccato and Cassie Curry, no doubt about it. And I think they're really excited about Marcus because he offers that versatility, like I said, where you can line up in different spots, whereas Cassie is that kind of true James Smith type of player, if you want to label him as that, where, all right, we're going to slot him into one spot, and we're going to feel really damn good that we're getting an elite player there. But it's really exciting time, and I think about all the all right, let's just dream for a second. We'll close the podcast by dreaming for 30 seconds. So imagine you
That's what I was doing. I was going left to right there, and I'm like, wait a minute. Go
just
ahead.
Imagine a defensive line haul of DJ Jacobs and Wyatt Smith on the outside, and then you got Marcus Piccato and Cassie Curry on the inside. That is all four of your defensive lineman starters being former top 100 prospects if they make it all signed and sealed and delivered in Columbus. So
Tier 1.
Yes, for sure. It's clear where Ohio State's allotment is going this cycle, and they've heard your prayers, Buckeye fans. Trenches, trenches, trenches. That's where their FSU money is going, and that's where they're putting a hell of a lot of resources to.
Think about it this way, and I'll end on this. If only Larry Johnson wasn't over the hill, think about how good we could be. All right. Have a good one, Nutters of Buck.